the European Union. I'm Kim Dozier, CNN Global Affairs analyst, here from Washington, D.C., and frankly, really enjoying the break from Washington. I want to invite onto the stage a distinguished audience. We will start with President Alexander Vučić. Please join us on stage of Serbia. And next we have Prime Minister Pashinyan of the Republic of Armenia. And then we have former Minister Lajčák joining us from nearby Slovakia. And lastly, former Chancellor Schallenberg from Austria. Thank you, sir. Now, I have warned these gentlemen that we are going to have a lively conversation, and as I think that they're shy and afraid to interrupt each other, to flag me, to bring them in. Side note, they're not at all shy. And I want to invite all of you to send us questions by Slido. And what we're going to be looking at is, two of you are trying to join the EU, and two of you have been through that process. So, Mr. President, I'd like to start with you. What is holding Serbia back at this point?
Ask them.
Oh,
and he's
well
right.
played.
He's right.
I am. It's anyway. It's there are many things still to be done. People in Europe, they always speak about merit-based, using this kind of phrase, which has actually never been the case. If you remember the situation with Romania, Bulgaria, it has always been a sort of political decision, not something that was based on merit-based criteria. And today we still have many things to do regarding rule of law issues. We have regional issue with Pristina, which is very difficult to be resolved. But at the same time, we have had so far the biggest growth rate and much bigger growth rate than Europe had it, at least in the last 10 years.
The biggest economic growth rate?
Yes, economic growth rate.
So they should want you.
Yeah, it's not anymore, or it's not only an issue of economic development, it's also about belonging to the EU single market, to sharing the same borders or not having the borders between all our countries, which is of an utmost importance, and not only for economy, but for the ordinary people's lives. And there are many other things that why we would like to join European Union. Some people would say values, although when we start defining those values, there are always differences. But the real issue for us, if I may define it, is a bit different than with the others. And it's about Kosovo, as you know. We are very much stick to UN Charter and UN Resolution 1244, which defines that as a part of Serbia, and 22 out of 27 EU countries, they have already recognized Kosovo's independence, and 5 out of 27 did not do that. And this is the issue, because we have to...
Belgrade is not yet ready to recognize Kosovo's independence.
Bratislava is not ready to recognize it. Bucharest is not ready. Athens is not ready. Madrid is not ready, and Nicosia is not ready, and it's not ready. It's you know, when you, because dear Madame Dozier, when you speak about it, and I was mentioning that last year here in Prague, when you speak about, let's say, territorial integrity of Ukraine, and we are firm supporters of territorial integrity of Ukraine, and when you speak about it, and then you speak about violation of UN principles international public law principles, then you cannot explain to anyone in Serbia, to anyone. It's not about me, it's not about politicians in power. To anyone in Serbia, well, what happened with territorial integrity of Serbia? And we still have Resolution 1244 in effect, and nobody cares about it.
So,
because there were some other political interests that were much more important to some Western allies than UN Charter and international public law.
If I may interject, is this partly why in recent polls Serbians are starting to question whether they want to join the EU? Or is it your closeness to Russia and the Ukraine conflict? Or should I say that you know how to talk to Russia?
Well, Russia has always been, has traditionally been a friend of our country, and that's not something that is not well known. But I believe that we have had a very principled position on Ukrainian issue. That's why I was emphasizing the fact that we do support UN Charter on that and territorial integrity of Ukraine. It's not about that. And we had the same type of closeness, as you say, 20 years ago, but at that time it was 80% of population in favor of EU. Now it's around 40%,
wow,
which is twice less. And it's not only in Serbia, you have the same problem in North Macedonia, and you have a big split, big division between Macedonians and Albanians. Albanians are 80% in favor, in North Macedonia in favor of joining EU, and North Macedonians as a nation, they are like Serbs, or even more skeptical about the EU path, which shows that it has nothing in common with Russia, to tell you the truth. It has something in common with our needs, with our expectations, some disappointments as well, and that's it.
So what I'm hearing is that it's complicated, and that Armenia might beat you. So with that, you might join the EU before they do. But you also have a bit of a Russia problem. So, Prime Minister, what is holding you back?
Nothing is holding us back, because we just adopted a law about the start of the process of accession to the European Union. But I'm sorry, first of all, let me express our concern and condemnation connected with Israeli latest action, strike to Iran, and you know it makes put under question the fragile stability that we have in the region, and we are very concerned. And continuing to that, but in general, you said that we have Russian problem or problem.
You have,
but
you have Russian troops in your territory, which has been a problem for other countries trying to join the EU. And I do want to get to the Israel strike on Iran and Iran's potential response later in the Q&A. So I'm glad you brought that up. So let's bookmark that for talking about in a little bit. But when I was in Yerevan last year, the city was convulsed with the opposition political party having a major Sunday night march through the streets. And so downtown was sort of frozen. And you do have Russian troops on part of your territory. The EU also has energy dependence on Baku, which is a problem. But can you just lay out for the audience some of the things that you're working on to join the EU?
I said already that recently we adopted a law in our parliament about the start of the process of the accession Armenia to European Union, and now we have very close cooperation with the European Union. But from the other side, we have no task to cut our relations with Russia, because our policy, our foreign policy, is balanced and balancing, and that is our strategy. From the other side, you mentioned rallies. I think rallies are very usual thing for any democratic country. Because it is very important to know that in Armenia we have reliable mechanism of free and democratic elections to form parliament, government, and Armenian citizens always have opportunity to express their opinion. But it is very important to state that democracy is a strategy for us. And law I just mentioned, it is not only our goal to go and to become a full member of European Union, but it is another impetus for us to continue and implement and widen our democratic reform agenda, and we hope that in time when we will submit a request for the EU full membership, it will be merit-based request, because we will manage to implement the through overall and deep democratic reforms, and that is our agenda. From the other side, you know that we have a complicated situation in our region, and you mentioned the presence of Russian troops in our country, but I would like to mention that we have also a European monitoring mission in our country, monitoring the situation, bordering situation with Azerbaijan. And from the other side, during last years, the scale of presence of Russian troops in our country decreased, but from the other side, now we have no task to end the presence of Russian troops, but we have another task to be able, with regional countries, establish sustainable and lasting peace in our region. And you know that recently, this year, we've been able with Azerbaijan to end the negotiations on the peace agreement between our countries with the positive results. I mean that the draft was agreed bilaterally, and bilaterally it is confirmed, and now it is time to sign peace agreement, and now we are in the process of consultations with Azerbaijan how to get to that point and to sign peace agreement. You know, we have stable and good relations with Iran and Georgia, and from the other side, now we have quite active dialogue with Turkey, and we hope that the agreement that we've been able to reach with Turkey in 2022 will be implemented. It is at least partial opening of our border, land border for diplomatic passport holders and third countries' citizens, okay. And I hope that we will be able to implement this agreement. And of course, in general, we understand. You know, we don't want to come to European Union and to bring conflicts to European Union. First of all, we want to address the possible conflicts in our region, create peace, and bring peace to European Union. That is our strategy. Add something to the peaceful life of European Union.
Long may it be so. So, Minister Lajčák, has Slovakia yet voiced its has it endorsed the membership of either country here in the EU, and if not, why not?
No, Slovakia's position when it comes to enlargement of the European Union has been quite clear and consistent. We are in favor of the enlargement. We support membership of countries who are willing to join and are meeting the criteria. Moreover, since we are part of the group that joined 20 years ago or 21 years ago, there is still a generation of diplomats and politicians, who, including myself, who were part of this process, and we are happy to share the experience from the process. So there is no problem with my country.
I hear you are pro the enlargement of the EU,
yes.
And of course Slovakia was one of the fastest to join. So, but have you backed these two individual countries yet? Have you said at the EU level that you want them in particular to join?
Sure we do.
Or do you have hoops for them to jump?
If we believe it's good for them, we believe it's good for the European Union.
Okay.
The problem is that, yes, my country needed 34 months, less than 3 years, to complete the accession negotiations and join the European Union. Serbia started the process in 2014, so it's already 11 years, and it's still a long way to go. So that means that for us, the process was very clear, very credible, and it had a huge transformative effect. Over years, we lost this. The process has become more blurred, more complicated, extended. I read somewhere that nowadays you need like 300 consensual votes in the European Council to get through the process. That means there are 300 opportunities that one single member state can block you at any stage. So this hardly motivates the candidates and helps them to address the painful issues of reform. So we have the issues with the credibility of the accession process. And also we need to find the right balance of the political and technical aspects. It's not a technical process, it's a political process based on meeting the technical criteria. You cannot be too bureaucratic and you cannot be too ideological. But the good news is that European Union has regained the momentum, has found the momentum for enlargement. There is a positive pro-enlargement atmosphere in Brussels and among the member states, and that opens this famous window of opportunity, and I really hope that both Serbia and Armenia will be able to use it and benefit from it.
So what I'm hearing is that, yes, Slovakia would like both of these countries to join, Armenia and Serbia, but you also recognize that the process has become much more bureaucratic, complicated, many more hoops to jump through. So I guess your main advice to them would be patience?
I think they have been overly patient already, because for the last 10 plus years we have been more talking about the enlargement than working on the enlargement. What is really important is to be aware that there are no shortcuts, there are no discounts, because if you want to be able to function in the community of European member states, you really have to fulfill the criteria. But at the same time, of course, we are all different, and we on the EU side need to recognize the specificity of each country. And countries like mine are always those who are trying to help, advise, and of course to be the good advocates for the enlargement.
Chancellor, we come to you. By some accounts, it took Austria a number of years to ascend to the EU. You had to get rid of the shackles of the Soviet Union, which meant you had to become neutral. And that was one telling of the tale, that your neutrality was initially an obstacle. But you're here now. What is your advice to these two countries in particular?
I would turn it around.
Okay.
There's no advice for those two. I would advise us within the European Union. We have the wrong mindset. And Miroslav was already pointing this out. There was once upon a time, the European communities knew that enlargement is actually the strongest geopolitical tool in the toolbox. When Greece joined in 1981, when Spain and Portugal joined in 1986, it was to strengthen young democracies. And it wasn't about did they or can they apply each and every letter of their acquis communautaire. It was a geopolitical, geostrategic endeavor. And now we have lost this mindset. And I believe the Russian attack on Ukraine brought it probably back to some capitals that we have to start thinking in these terms as our forefathers did. For Vienna, it's very clear. You go 500 kilometers to the east, you have Ukraine. You go 500 kilometers south, you have Bosnia-Herzegovina. Both are neighborhoods. We have to stabilize this neighborhood. And I would say this is probably the geostrategic litmus test for the capacity of the European Union, the geostrategic capacity of the European Union. If we fail in our neighborhood, then we should stop talking or fantasizing about the EU role in the Middle East, Northern Africa, or elsewhere. So my advice would be, stop with this bureaucratic approach, number crunching, see it in geostrategic terms, and we have, and by the way, Southeastern Europe, we call it the Western Balkans. I prefer Southeastern Europe because it's Europe. It's not the backyard. It's surrounded by EU member states. All problems they have are our problems. Some of them even originate in EU member states, if I think about migration. Any migrant normally has crossed an EU state before arriving in Southeastern Europe. So this is not our backyard, this is our patio. And history has shown again and again, if we don't have lasting prosperity and stability in Southeastern Europe, we don't have lasting stability and security in Central Europe. And we have seen what that can create as a problem with World War I and World War II. So let's get our act together in Brussels and the capitals of EU member states.
So we have a number of Slido questions coming in, and many of them are for you, Mr. President, but a lot of them focus on Serbia's relationship with Russia. And so I have a question for the whole panel. Right now, a number of EU plans having to do with limiting, sanctioning Russia, limiting investment in Russia, limiting Russia's ability to fund its war against Ukraine, have been stymied by Hungary or the current Slovakian government. If Serbia joins, you've got one more country that also has a close relationship with Russia. I mean, Mr. President, would you consider arming Ukraine? Would you consider stepping up support and sanctioning Russia, stopping any energy purchases, et cetera? And how would Moscow react to that?
You know, we are not fully dependent, but we are very much dependent on buying gas from Russia. More than 80% of all the quantities we are getting from Russia through that Turkish or Balkan stream, whatever you call it. And we tried and we are striving to diversify all the sources, but that will remain so in at least the next 6 to 7 years.
And of course, recent reporting has shown that the European Union spent more in buying oil supplies and energy supplies from Russia than it actually gave to Ukraine. So you're in good company. But that first part of my question, arming Ukraine, stepping up your support to Ukraine, as you've said, it is an important issue.
I tried to respond to you, but you didn't allow me to finish my...
But now I am.
Thank you. We have a very good cooperation with Ukraine. I have seen President Zelensky 2 days ago in Odessa. Spoke to him so far 9 times, if I'm not mistaken. And Ukraine has always been a friendly country towards Serbia. As a matter of fact, they are very much observant on international public law, and they did not recognize Kosovo's independence as well. They did not even invite Pristina to Odessa meeting, and that's what we appreciate very much, and we have nothing against Ukraine. And speaking about arming up someone, we have no right, according to our laws, to sell and to send any kind of equipment to Russia, either to Ukraine. Some people say that through third countries they were getting some of our equipment. No doubt, whenever you sell it to whomever you want in the world, then both of them, particularly Ukraine, will get something from European countries or from the States or from some other countries, but we cannot do it directly and we cannot do it on purpose, and we don't do it. But we have always a lot to discuss and a lot to cooperate with Ukraine, and we offered our huge support for restoring and renewing their 2 towns and 1 region. Also, we provided big financial support last year it was tens of millions that we had given to Ukraine as a gift from Serbian government. We're going to do the
And
same.
Moscow has not pressured you to stop this support?
I cannot say that they're making big pressure, but whether they're jubilant about it, no doubt they're not. It's not very difficult to conclude, but I cannot say that they make any kind of pressure on this, because we act as an independent, as a sovereign country. But you know, it's this European path. It cannot be like whether you are pro-Russian or anti-Russian. It's not about that, or it shouldn't be about it, because we are not anti-Russians and will never be anti-Russians. But what does it mean, pro-Russian? That we have a good cooperation with them? That's it. We are not small Russians, as many people in the States think about Serbia. We are Serbs.
Well, as Vladimir Kara-Murza has reminded me, it's not pro or anti-Russia, it's pro or anti-Putin.
Okay. Well, I believe you're much smarter than I am, but it's too simplified. It's too simplified. I think that more important question for us is strategic approach of the European Union. What European Union wants to do with all of us, whether they want us or they don't want us. You know what they invented recently? They always find one country that will object to something in North Macedonia, which is always Bulgaria. They will always have Croatia and some other country that will object on something in Serbia, and it will always be the same response. Let's say, well, we have minority issues, minority problems, or problems with textbooks or whatever else, doesn't matter, but just to hold us and to bring us back. And it's in a way, and scoffing us on any single issue that might pop up. It's not something that brings trust and confidence between us. But I believe that more of respect to be shown by all of us. And we have problems. Maybe it's my fault that the European Union is not that popular in Serbia as it used to be. Maybe I should change my own attitudes, my own stances, and to create, at least in a certain way, better or nicer propaganda for European Union.
But you mean to sell the prospect of joining the EU, the advantages to your people, economically?
No doubt.
No?
No doubt, economically, politically, in many different ways, and I think that no one can deny it. People, it's an emotional question for us. That's what I wanted to depict in a way, speaking about this territorial integrity issues and some other issues. But just speaking about merit-based approach. And then you're going to say to us that, okay, Tirana and Podgorica are better places than Belgrade, or more developed. No one believes in that. Absolutely, there is no person in the world that believes in that. No one.
That believes there are other cities more developed than Belgrade.
No one. Hey, come on. It's like I would say Guatemala is... okay, I'm not going to make this kind of comparison.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, that'll get you in trouble. Well, I
wanted to get closer to US, but to US borders at least.
Okay.
But you have bigger mutinies and unrest than Pashinyan in Armenia.
Oh, I am not throwing stones from my glass house here. I'm just asking questions.
But you're throwing stones in our glass house. Okay.
I am a journalist who's supposed to be here just asking tough questions. So I do have, before going to the Prime Minister, Minister Lajcak, Slovakia's last government had a very different attitude than this government, the current government, towards the war in Ukraine and towards many issues, which is one of the reasons we're sitting here in Prague instead of Bratislava. Does the EU have a big enough tent to bring in countries that have a closer relationship with Moscow?
You know, I have a bit of a problem with this very simplistic interpretation of the world around us, because the world is not simple. And we should not be making political conclusions on the basis of tweets or media headlines. Because, as I said, the life is way more complicated. The slogan or the motto of the European Union is united in diversity. What is really important is you adhere to European norms and values. And there are mechanisms that, of course, are there to assess whether this is happening. But it's like when you read the media and you know the reality, then you cannot stop wondering how different, how distant the media picture is from the reality. So therefore, I think we are responsible people, diplomats, politicians, and we should really look into the substance and avoid drawing conclusions on the basis of what media or some people are saying. So that's first, and there is no reason to be worried about my country. Nobody is perfect, but we are a loyal member of the European Union and North Atlantic Alliance, because we know that this is our area of vital importance. This is what brings us safety and security, prosperity, and there is no doubt about that. And as I said, we are also trying to help those who want to join the European Union to achieve that goal, because exactly we want them to benefit the same way we have benefited. And I might be a bit provocative here, but aren't we a bit obsessed with Russia and with China here in our space? I mean, I spent 1 year as a president of the United Nations General Assembly. The world looks very different from there. You know, so it's also, and like it or not, Russia and China are realities. And instead of competing in statements, which are changing nothing, maybe we should rather compete in discussing how to deal with these countries. How shall we build our relationship? So, because you cannot ignore them. I mean, they are both permanent members of the United Nations. And when I say that, I will already be labeled and not being anti-Russian or anti-Chinese enough. But we need to stop this madness, for God's sake, because where is this getting us? Look at the world as it is. So probably it's time for some adults to step in the room and to try to be less extremist and more moderate. War is war, aggression is aggression. Russia is aggressor in Ukraine, the war needs to stop, and we want a just peace. Let's be very clear about it. But as I said, I think it's too much propaganda, too much ideology, and too little common sense in all this discourse.
Prime Minister Pashinyan, I have a question for you from Slido, and also just a warning to the audience. In about a minute, we're going to turn to you for a couple of questions. So put your hands up, and I will probably only get to 2, so forgive me in advance. The question is Armenia's path to the EU tied to Georgia's?
Actually, yes, because you know, in general, we were encouraged by Georgia, who received candidate status for European Union, and that I think made Armenia's perspective to European Union more realistic for our people, for our citizens. And of course, now we have 2 neighbor countries which are candidates for European Union, Turkey and Georgia, and of course, it would be more realistic for Armenia to become member of European Union, having a neighbor, or to be member of European Union together with neighboring country, because that means to have mutual land border with the European Union.
Yeah. I have another couple of questions for President Vučić before going to the audience. Two pesky ones. You will consider them pesky. One of them is, you often claim that student protests in Serbia are supported by the West. Whom exactly do you have in mind? And a companion one to that is, how do you explain deportations from Serbia of a number of people because of their support for the students protesting? And I ask this group of questions because it goes to the EU's objections to giving people a democratic voice.
You see, for me, it's very important to answer this question. There are protests that are lasting for almost 2 years. But the recent protests actually started 7 months ago. Can you imagine for 7 months that they were blocking all the roads, all the faculties, all the crossroads, all the bridges, whenever they wanted, in a very illegal way, not even announcing, not even declaring, not even asking police when to do it, how to do it, or just letting them know. And we were tackling that issue in a most proper way, without any single intervention of our police, which is totally different comparing to the most democratic countries, so-called most democratic countries in Europe. If you block the highway...
Sorry, so-called Muslim democratic countries? Do you mean like Turkey?
If Netherlands is a Muslim democratic country, or France, then you're right, but I don't believe in that. When they block, let's say, the highway between The Hague and Amsterdam, they beat them so severely in 1 hour that they cannot recover for weeks, the protesters. If they do it in Germany, if they do it in France, they do the same. We in Serbia, we don't do it. We allow them to protest and to protest and to protest endlessly, and we have no problems with that.
But you are deporting some people. You are arresting and deporting some. Are you saying that their issues are valid, but their method is not?
Tell me, which people we are deporting?
I obviously don't have a list of names here.
That's the case always, because that's what Mira was very right, saying, well, that we base many things on Twitter or tweets, posts, or social networks. When we come to the real issues, then it's always there are claims and there are claims. Yes, there were 34 people that were temporarily expelled from the country in the last 7 months, but not Serbian citizens, of course. Citizens of the other country that were involved in all these protests and demonstrations.
But I come back to my question, do you believe that they have a right to protest and that their issues are valid and you just didn't agree with how they did it?
No, there are no problems. I don't agree with them on many things, but they have their right to protest. It's a democratic country and I'm okay with that. And will always be okay with that. But the real issue is what you do when you start your protests. And that's it. That's the issue. All the other issues, I don't see, to tell you the truth. And I saw that they were asking me a question, when we'll have an elections. We'll have an elections either the end of next year or the beginning of 2027. And that's it. We have had elections a year ago, and now we are doing a lot of preparations for a specialized expo in 2027, and we need to do a lot of work. We need to do a lot of work on our EU accession path as well. And then people will say and people will decide who's going to win and who's going to reign and rule the country in the future.
I have to say that while you say you want to join the EU, you just called the Netherlands and France, I believe, Muslim democratic countries.
No. You mentioned Muslims. I didn't mention Muslims.
I said it to you because I can't hear you very well. I got my ears blown out in Iraq.
I was not mentioning Muslims at all.
Okay, so that was my mistake.
No, I was saying that speaking about democratic issues, that they act in a very democratic way.
Okay.
Beating those protesters, but we are not that democratic and we don't do that.
My apologies on stage. I can only...
And I was not mentioning Muslims. You were mentioning Muslims.
I can only wear one of 2 hearing aids on stage. Thanks to Al-Qaeda, I got my ears blown out in Iraq. My apologies for my error. Just want to take a couple of questions, and we have to keep them brief. The lady right there and the lady right there. Can you introduce yourself in a brief question?
Hello, my name is Eleonora Tafuro. I work for a think tank based in Milan, ISPI. I have a question for Mr. Pashinyan. I had the pleasure to interview you in Milan in 2019 when Armenia's bid to join the EU was science fiction. We would never imagine to live these days. But my question is about Armenia's membership in the Eurasian Economic Union. As you know, this is a very important obstacle to a future membership in the EU. How are you approaching this problem? How are you going to solve this dilemma? Thank you.
And I want to take one more question before we answer, since time is short.
Thank you. My name is Svetluša Surova, and I represent Minority Issues Research Institute, headquartered in Bratislava. But I come from Serbia, being Slovak national minority. So just to clarify that, maybe we'll shed a light on the questions that I'll ask. So Sir Lajčák, who is very appreciated, mentioned that we have this madness or obsession with Russia and China. And my question to all of the panelists is, if they think that democratic countries have responsibility to hold authoritarian and totalitarian regimes accountable for breaking, as mentioned here by President Vučić, international law, but also international law not only concerning state territoriality, sovereignty, but also for violating human rights of the citizens of their soils. First, and second, small comment, you said, you asked a rhetoric question, where this has brought us, this obsession with Russia and China. Well, to the war at the border country of Slovakia, to the loss of territory of this country, to the millions deported people, forced people to leave, to thousands of killed people.
Sorry, there's got to be a question in your question.
Yes, and a last question for President Vučić. I cannot discriminate him here. Yes, you said you don't allow protesters to protest, that you don't
Sorry, that we've got enough questions. So
thank you.
Prime Minister.
Thank you for the question. Of course, we understand that we can't be a member of Eurasian Economic Union and European Union at the same time. And obviously, at a point in the future, we will need to make decision. So, but it is very important that decision will be made by the citizens of Armenia, of course, with the leadership of the government and parliament of Armenia. And now, as I already said many times, that at least to the point that there is no strict need to make that decision, we will continue our democratic reforms to be as compliant with the standards of European Union as it possible. And when that moment will come, we will put that question on the table. I mean, into political agenda of Armenia, and together with our citizens, we will make a decision.
So my other question, Chancellor, I'd like to, from here, yes, to respond to that. I mean, what is Austria's responsibility, for instance, towards autocracies, and are you comfortable, for instance, with Serbia's treatment of its protesters?
They're very different questions.
They're very different questions.
No, on the question on Russia and China,
what's the
very clearly, very
clearly,
clearly,
treating protesters. What's the problem? What happened to protesters? Tell me, please. And as you can see, I'm
there
here to
are
listen.
allegations that they're from human rights groups that
Come
they
on,
aren't allowed to.
Forget it. Tell me one allegation.
That there is a.
What?
Various EU officials have expressed concern that there's not enough freedom to express oneself politically in Serbia. It's one of the issues that I know that I can tell you're upset with the EU for it. I'm channeling the question that I've read from.
Tell me,
EU
Madame
critics.
Dozier, what happened to protesters that was bad? Just tell me one thing.
The expulsion and arrests that have chilled.
But this is about.
I mean,
sorry, Alexander.
No. Everything is okay, Alexander. I believe this is a more complicated thing, and I would plead with you a little bit. We should stop if you're in politics, the world is not black and white. You can have this luxury if you're working for a think tank or you're on social media. We should get a little bit more emotionality out of the debate. We should start to see the world the way it is and not the way we would wish it to be. You asked beforehand on totalitarian regimes or in general treatment of countries which are not, acting the way we would like. I believe here again you have to make a difference. For us very clearly, and for me very clearly, if one country invades another one, under what pretext ever, then we cannot be simply bystanding and saying that's okay. You violate the principles of UN Charter, that's okay, because these principles are keeping us safe. We are a small country. We don't have nukes, and I don't want to live in the planet where you have the law of the jungle. So there's a clear reaction. But again, what we are doing in Europe, and I believe that's what you're referring to in the debate, we are demonizing things. I remember the debate we had in the Council of blocking, giving a visa block for every single Russian citizen, 144 million people. I was against it. We have to make the difference between Putin and his henchmen and Russia. Russia will remain our biggest neighbor. Russia will remain part of European history. Russia will remain part of European culture. And we should be a little bit cautious about demonizing. And that is, I believe, what has been meant in the debate beforehand. The world is not black and white. The world is extremely complicated, and I believe we do not a favor to any European debate if we say, you are pro-Russian because you said a nice word, or you don't repeat the sentences. I got shitstorms because I said I will continue to read Russian literature and listen to Tchaikovsky. Let's be very careful. There was once a regime in Europe where they banned books, they burned books, they banned things. Cancel culture and ghosting is not something you can do in foreign policy. We can do it on social media, not in foreign policy. Be very careful. Let's be very careful on what kind of thinking we embark here.
And Minister, did you have a response?
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree, as usually, with Alexander. What I want to say, I'm a strong believer in the European Union. I really believe that this is the most successful union of countries on this planet. And I also believe that the European Union is strongest when we lead by example. That means when we put our house in order, when we don't go around lecturing or patronizing, but we perform the way that others want to be like us, others wants to join us. This is who we are, and this is when the European Union is strongest. I don't agree when we are trying to hide behind others. Like, when it comes to the Balkans, I've been asked a million times the question, what about the third players? And I said, forget the third players. I mean, we are the main player, and the third players are only using the space we are left open for them. If we are not doing our work properly, then there is a lot of void space which the others are entering, and then don't hide behind them. That's logical. I mean, so if we are serious, they are serious. And my last point, yes, we have a war in Ukraine, which was, the Russian aggression in Ukraine. What worries me as an European is that we are not at the table. Why is it Turkey, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Emirates, with all the respect to these countries, but why the European Union is not at the table? Why nobody is asking us for our opinion? So that means if we are doing everything right, then we would be at the table, which we are not. So I'm a professional diplomat. I really believe in diplomacy, in the power of dialogue, and this is where I want to see the European Union.
Thank you. And we only have a few seconds left, but begging some time from the organizers. Mr. President, I wanted to give you a last moment because this Q&A and asking you tough questions is one of the signs of democratic debate. So, but you have had large demonstrations. Are you, even if you don't like the manner of what they're saying, what do you think of what they're asking for?
Well, at the beginning they were asking for responsibility of the people they saw, or they felt that those people were accountable for the canopy fall that happened in Novi Sad, which was a terrible accident. Now they have different approach and different demands, totally different, something that they were strongly against 6 months ago. That's how it goes. But you know, seeing all the demonstrations all over the world, this is...
Would you like to open a dialogue with them? Are you in
I
dialogue?
have already offered that 10 times. From the very beginning, at that time, they were saying it was not my competence and my authority. Now they came to me recently saying it's your competence, it's your authority, call for elections, that's it. You know, they change their attitudes almost on a daily basis, which is okay. I have no problems.
Democracy is messy. On that note, I want to thank all of you and the audience for engaging in a very lively debate.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now, folks, we're going to continue right after a very short video with a panel called Middle East, Is a Path to Long-Lasting Peace Possible? So don't go anywhere. We'll be back soon.